ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember I share and subscribe. Join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories are talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones. Today, we are live in studio. We have a live show here for everybody, so if you have any questions or comments throughout the show, throw them in the comments section, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Guys, we are excited for some cool events coming up here from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We are headed to Milwaukee Paracon. That is coming up not this weekend, but next weekend. It is a free event in the city of Milwaukee. There's going to be a lot of great speakers and panels available for you, as well as vendors. Tickets are free. All you have to do is sign up and register for the event on the website so that they have a head count and know how many people to expect and keep track of all that fun stuff that goes along with running these events. So Milwaukee Paracon, October 19th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We are doing a live Halloween special coming up October 27th for the team. You can find it on our YouTube channel and Facebook. It'll be at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tune on into that. Head on over to Wisconsin Caps on YouTube and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss it. We are going to be at the Bell City Paracon November 2nd in Summers, Wisconsin. We are going to be at CryptidCon in Lexington, Kentucky the week before Thanksgiving, October 23rd and 24th. And we are going to be in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, November 30th for the Soul and Synergy Expo. We also are going to be at Krampus in December 1st in the Brewery District of Milwaukee, heading back to Milwaukee for Krampus Fest. So that is going to be fun. We are going to be a vendor there. A lot of cool vendors and street stuff and parades and all kinds of stuff for that place. So head on over to that, check it out. You can find me yet coming up this year, Nina Library. We will be at Edgerton Library, and there is one other one, I think Oak Creek Library as well. All that information is available on our website, wisconsincaps.com. If you want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, our guest today is the ghost biker, Miranda Young. She grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of East Tennessee in the very rural town of Robbins. She holds a bachelor's degree in mass communications with an emphasis in journalism and advertising. Her professional background includes 21 years as a director in marketing, graphic design, and public relations professional. She is also a professional photographer and artist specializing in drawing historic buildings and monuments. Miranda is the founder, host, producer, marketing executive behind Ghost Biker Explorations, a world-recognized web series which highlights her travels on her motorcycle to historic haunted locations around the country. She has been featured in numerous magazines and local newspapers and has been a guest speaker at events and podcasts and radio shows across the country. While available on multiple social media platforms, Ghost Biker Explorations is a popular series on Mix 1041, which is a web TV platform. In 2001, Miranda co-founded the company History, Highways, and Haunts, LLC, and co-owns the historic Scott County Jail, True Crime Museum, and Paranormal Research Center in Huntsville, Tennessee. In May of 2003, the business expanded with a partnership with the Village of Historic Rugby. Through this partnership, Historic Rugby After Dark was formed, offering all the historic villages after dark programming. Welcome to the show, Miranda Young. Hello, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm great, Barnaby. How are you?
I'm doing well this morning.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and been looking forward to this for a while.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I have too. I got the chance to meet you in person down in South Carolina at the Hagood Mill Historical Complex. That was pretty cool. Yeah. Did you get a chance to
that was
that night?
I didn't. I had some prior commitments that I had going on, so I didn't get to investigate. But I did highlight Hey Good Mill in my series, actually season 6. So last year we did a live investigation there, and did a pretty cool thing over in the 2 cabins that are there, the slave cabin and the Native American cabin. We did a flashlight poker session, and the responses were off the chain, and we were actually had the flashlights lined up with the cards sitting there, and they were actually calling out the winning hand with the flashlights. It was pretty incredible.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Those are the cabins way in the back of the property?
Yes, right there. Right there as you start to go up to the woods. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff go on there too. We haven't released our episode yet. It was supposed to come out this December, and it got pushed back till next year. So that's how far behind my editing is.
Yeah, it was, I really actually enjoyed that Paracon because Brandon did an amazing job of bringing people from all around the country with different fields of study interests there. So I felt like everything was represented from the cryptid side, the ufology side to the paranormal side. And then just getting to meet some of these amazing folks that I'd only known just through Facebook was really a cool experience. And so I hope they continue to do that again. And I know it did some really great things for the mill and the village itself. So, and like you said, it was really cool to be able to meet you in person there as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And yeah, like you said, Paracons are awesome because like you get to see people that, you know, you spend, I don't know how often you travel to them and stuff, but for a while there, I was doing them every weekend, and you get to see the same people every weekend all the way across the country. Even the people that go is really interesting. Like we have the same people from like Wisconsin all the way down to Kentucky and stuff when we go to CryptidCon, and these people, you know, travel just as far as we do to these events to see everyone. So that's a really cool experience.
It is. And when, you know, there's so much work that goes into these conventions that people put out. And I think a lot of the time it's not realized how much goes in. And when you find some of these conventions that take the care to not only take care of their guests and their speakers and that sort of thing, but also making sure that the people that visit have a wonderful experience, and that, again, all topics are covered. It's not just filling a room with warm bodies. It's actually making sure that it's a good experience. Those are ones that keep people coming back. And it's kind of, you know, challenging to find some of those that are good like that.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
let's talk about kind of your show and stuff here. So anybody that's not familiar with it, where did the whole ghost biker come from? You know, is it like the what's his name? Ghost Rider. That's not that hard to remember. Where did this whole thing start for you?
Okay, so I am a biker as well as a paranormal investigator with a passion for the history and history and storytelling side of the paranormal. And so I'd always been interested in the paranormal ever since I was a child. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, sitting on her porch, listening to her tell stories about growing up here in the Appalachian Mountains. And so, you know, around here we called them haints and boogers. And so, of course, that was the spirits and the cryptids. And so I grew up really hearing a lot of those stories, and so spent lots of time in the libraries reading as much as I could, talking to the old timers, as well as you know, watching such shows as Unsolved Mysteries. That was one of my favorites growing up, because it really really scared me, and I had a hard time falling asleep after I'd watch it, but I absolutely loved it. And so I would grab onto anything that was supernatural, high strangeness throughout the years. And so it wasn't until about 15 years ago I was invited to join a paranormal team. They actually reached out. It was the guy that I worked with. He reached out to me because of my background in photography, and he wanted me to look at some photos that they had taken on some of their investigations, and essentially be able to look at them from a professional perspective and try to determine maybe some of the things that they had captured, essentially debunking it or coming up with a logical explanation. And so by doing this, he had me review, I would say, you know, it started with just a couple photos and then turned into, you know, 15, 20 photos. And so they invited me to join an investigation. Now, of course, like a lot of folks at that time, you know, I'd watched some of the paranormal entertainment shows and saw how, you know, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Ventures, those type shows were doing the investigations. But to actually go in and experience one myself was totally different. Now, again, growing up in the area that we're in, we'd go to cemeteries all the time and, you know, see if we were able to get a response by, you know, just using recorders and really just having personal experiences. But to be able to go in to my first investigation was at a marina, a haunted bar, and it had these paranormal claims. The guys that invited me to go, they had been investigating at this point in time for 10 to 15 years already. So they were real seasoned investigators, great guys to learn from. Went in and utilized some of the equipment, had my own recorder, was able to record some of my own EVP sessions, and was actually touched that night for the first time. And so really after that first investigation, I was bit by the bug. And so they invited me to come back, and then eventually invited me to become a member of the team. And so I did their photo analysis as well as worked on putting together their videos and stuff that they put out with. So I was with the team for about 8 years, and found that, we were investigating usually once a month somewhere, whether it was a commercial location or a private residence. Being down in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, there's a lot of hauntings related to some of the Civil War battles that had been fought in the area. So we kept busy with it, but I found that while I was traveling for work, or while I was traveling on the weekends out riding my motorcycle, I was doing a lot of urbexing, or urban exploration, going out and taking photos of locations and posting those photos on my website. And so the photos, they really started to gain a lot of attention, some of them from local officials in the area that used some of the photos to try to get some of these buildings on the National Historic Registry, or to get funding, that sort of thing. And just people who were following the photos, they were asking a lot of questions about, well, what's the story behind some of these places that you're traveling to? And so kind of just as a joke to a friend, I made a comment about, just call me the ghost biker, because, again, I was riding the bike to the different investigations that we were doing. And she was like, well, I would watch that. And so, of course, that gets my wheels turning a little bit, and thinking, well, I'm going out and doing this a lot on my own. And there are ways that this can be used essentially to gain attention for some of these lesser known locations in the area, by reaching out to kind of a more mainstream audience of the biker community, or folks who maybe are not as interested in the paranormal, but love history, love travel, and maybe just kind of grabbing that audience in a different way. So I sat down and I branded myself with my logo and how I wanted my episodes to be. I essentially wanted them to be short episodes that people could, and they would cover a lot of ground. So they would talk about the area that I was traveling to and the travel itself, and then also share the story, and then show the investigation, and put the person into the moment of the investigation, rather than just kind of a review of the evidence that I caught. Mm-hmm. And so through all of that, Ghost Biker Explorations was formed. We tried to keep each of the episodes anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, so that if somebody is taking a break at work, they can watch it. Or if they're like me and they hardly have time to sit down and do anything, they can sit down and watch it while they're eating dinner or something. And so, of course, now we're rolling in, or actually we're in the middle of season 7, filming for that. But all the episodes drop during the month of October. And so every Tuesday night, there's an episode of that, and then a follow-up episode on Thursday nights. Because by keeping the episode short, I didn't want to use the real estate during the investigation to talk about the equipment that I was using. I wanted to do a separate show to really break down the episode, talk about the equipment, and get feedback from people who watch the show. And so it really became kind of a cool way to do these things, because it gave me the opportunity to talk to people who, again, maybe weren't so much interested in investigation side of things, but they were interested in the history or the travel part, but they stuck around for the investigation. And so it was really kind of explaining that a little bit more to someone that might not necessarily, fall into that category. So yeah, through that, I've had the opportunity to partner with Harley Davidson, and we do different Harley events, do haunted motorcycle rides, do different conventions and events. And we do cover a lot of the more lesser known spots. I've had the opportunity to spend time at some amazing haunted, locations that have the reputation, Waverly Hills, the Stanley Hotel, Lizzie Borden House. Been able to stay at those places. But I like to tell people that if you take a map and close your eyes and touch anywhere on that map, I guarantee that there is going to be a story that's related to anywhere you touch on that map. It may not be worldwide known. You might look out and it might be, but it's definitely something that's probably regionally known to the area. And you can get some really unique and cool locations to investigate by doing that. So that's what we try to promote with the show Ghost Biker Explorations, and it's been really successful so far in doing that.
Very cool. Very cool. So you would talk about like knowing all the little small town stories and stuff like that. Have you just done? You talked about some of the bigger ones in that, but do you stay mostly in Kentucky, Tennessee area, or do you go all over the U.S.?
I'll go all over the U.S. It really just depends on what I'm highlighting, because I like to do a theme with each season. Sometimes, it's not as clear, cut and dry what the theme is, but these past, I guess for like the past 4 seasons, we've tried to stick with a pretty concise theme. The first couple seasons, it was just myself and a camera person. I'm primarily a solo investigator. I will either investigate just by myself, or I'll have my camera person with me. It really just depends. We have done a couple collaborations throughout, and we've also done some locations where people will reach out and they'll say, hey, we have this interesting story in this location, and I have access if you would be interested in investigating. Or, maybe I get it from a book about a specific area, or maybe it's a local legend that I've heard all my life. But like, for instance, season 5, we highlighted all haunted homes. And so I picked some of these different locations that maybe weren't there were a few on there that was well known, but a few others that were not as much. And I think we highlighted places in Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi. I do a lot in the Southeast region, but we will travel all over. And then, of course, the next season we did all haunted jails. I was interested in doing the jails over prisons, because we have highlighted some really big prisons in the show. But I was interested in the jails because most of these, they have these very well-known local stories to the area. The jail was such a central part to some of these small communities, and because most of them were open for 100 years or a little bit over, you have so many different stories that you could get from, because you have so many different people that are going throughout those doors over the years, some who were there for a short period of time, some for maybe a little bit longer. And then last season we went to an all live format, which was a lot of fun. And I'm really glad we did that. It was so successful that we were able to continue that with this season. The goal was with that. So we covered all museums, heritage centers, or old homesteads. And so that was when we ended up doing Hey Good Meal at. We did Clover Hill Village up in Appomattox, Virginia. We did the Village of Historic Rugby there in Rugby, Tennessee. So that was another one we traveled all over the Southeast for. But these were all locations that had either only been investigated a handful of times or had never been investigated before at all. And these locations rely on funding from their daytime tours to keep the doors open. And so the goal was to go to these places, check for some paranormal activity, and reach a different audience that may not have ever heard of some of these smaller villages, and promote a lot of the different events, because a lot of them had Halloween events that were coming up. And so using that to promote those, and to try to get the word out about these places, and show them that, hey, it's not just about the daytime tours. After dark revenue is something that is really popular, and can be something to really help you sustain your location. And so by the end of the season, we did the Kentucky Music Hall of Fame, which is a venue there in Kentucky, and they have a heritage village on site there. And we had, by the end of the season, we had 350 people on the live investigating with us. And I say us, myself and my camera person. And then, within a week, I think we had 25,000 views just on that one episode alone. And so with that, going to this all live format, including everyone, because it really is an interactive, inclusive process where I do like I do on my traditional produced episodes by telling the history and going into the stories as to why we're there, and also telling a little bit about the cool things that you can do in the area if you're traveling there. And then going into the investigation, I show the tools that I have, and basically the audience suggests what we're going to try. I read questions from the people, and then they essentially act as my eyes and ears. So we decided to carry that a step. Well, then of course on Thursdays, I would have the location owner come on, talk a little bit more, and we really dive in. And if I have time, and it just depends on how far I'm traveling, if I have time, we highlight some of the key points that happened during the live investigation. And that also encourages people, go back, watch the episode, send me timestamps of things that you've noticed, and we'll talk about that on our live episode. This season, we decided to continue that format. And so we are investigating all antique stores, oddity shops, and collections. And the past two episodes, the past two Tuesday nights, have been off the chain with some really interesting activity, very intelligent and very aware activity. The cool thing about these locations, they've never been investigated before, and they all do take place in the North Georgia area.
We are live here with the ghost biker Miranda Young. We are live in studio. If you guys have any questions for her, if you've tuned into any of the live shows or anything and have any questions about that and didn't get them in, throw them in the comments section. We'll get them as soon as we can throughout the show here. So the oddity shops. So you're talking like the two-headed goats and all the weird stuff throughout history and stuff. I love those places. I've been to almost all of them in my area around here,
Nice.
for personal shopping reasons and such. But I mean, like all these things, we were talking before the show, we just actually filmed at a pawn shop ourselves here. And it's so interesting because you get the history of the items. And you never know what you're going to get through. We brought our mediums out, and they were able to basically tell the story of a couple of the items in the store and the people that were attached to them. So what kind of stuff have you come across? Maybe even like weirder stuff from the oddity shops or anything. What are some of the cool stuff that's happened?
Well, so we've not covered any oddity shops yet this season. We've only done two for this season so far. We had one this past Tuesday night in a antique shop in Northeast Georgia. With that one, I wasn't allowed to advertise the name of that location. But the week before, we were in Dahlonega, Georgia, which we highlighted Dipsy Doodle Antiques. And Dahlonega is really interesting because it was the site of America's first gold rush. A lot of people don't realize that actually took place there in Georgia before the gold rush out west took place. And it was interesting. The first location, it didn't have any paranormal claims. And the owner of the location said, it's pretty quiet. The original building, it used to be part of the Panther farm. So that was one of the original founders of the area, owned a lot of land. So they had a farmstead there. After that, they opened it up as a feed and seed store. And then that was during its earliest times. And then it opened as a men's ministry for addicts. And so basically they lived on site to get back in shape there. And they also had a store there on the property that they were able to use to fund the ministry. And so once they essentially got back on their feet, they were able to go on. And so then it opened as an antique shop under Dipsy Doodle there in 2016. And so off the bat, I like doing these locations that have never been investigated before because they kind of create their own challenge as to, what are we experiencing with. And I actually really kind of like the fact that there were really no claims coming from this one. A lot of people, when you look at an antique shop, you think, oh, naturally it has to be active, but that's not always the case. And so one of the things that I kind of start out with some basic tools. We set up tripwire there in several areas of the store. There in the back area that had some military memorabilia as well as some vintage toys, and then just some random booths and some old music from the 60s and 70s. And then in the front where their stands were, that they had a lot of Native American artifacts as well as some old costume jewelry and some old collection items like baseball cards and such. And so I set flashlights up in front of each of the booths, and I know the flashlights kind of have it's one of those things where they're a little bit controversial, but from the experiences that I've had, I really like using them at newer or places that haven't been investigated, because it seems like the activity, they're easy for them to manipulate and easy to understand. So I had set flashlights up along with the tripwire going up through each of the booths, and instantly got intelligent responses and I hadn't, because I'd set up so quick, I hadn't had a chance to go through all the different items that was in that area. I just knew it was military memorabilia, and I saw an airplane on the shelf. I didn't know that it was all Air Force memorabilia at the time. And so as I'm running through questions, we get responses from two of the flashlights that we're talking to two veterans. And so as I start, and again, no reaction to anything until I got to the veterans question. Instantly, I start running through the different branches of the military, and the one that was sitting on the shelf with the Air Force memorabilia instantly. And I was kind of strategic as to where I placed the question about the Air Force in my listing of the military branches. And as soon as I said Air Force, lit up. And when we went over there and started investigating what was on the shelf, every bit on that particular shelf with the flashlight was just exclusively Air Force memorabilia. We also found that one of the people we spoke with was a Vietnam veteran. It was back there with the music. Every bit of that music was from the Vietnam era. So being able to go take that time, find all of that information, and to actually see that it's accurate to the time frame that we're getting these responses on was pretty incredible. Also, up toward the front, we did take two different items that would essentially not be from the same time period, that would not necessarily go together. We took some of the Native American axe heads and put them together with some spurs, and we got some interesting reactions going back and forth when we would move and shift the items together to see if there was essentially, I don't want to say creating a conflict, but seeing if the energy would change. There was somebody in front of the costume jewelry section that really wanted to talk to us. So we pulled out the Obelisk 5 and thought that we would test to see, because it just felt like whoever was with the costume jewelry was just really wanting to talk to us. And so, because it kept trying to get our attention, well, as soon as I turned the Obelisk 5 on, we get design and club first thing that comes out. And so it's interesting. The jewelry came from the 1930s, and the lady who owned the jewelry, or excuse me, the antique store, she said, I think I know who this could be that we're talking to. She said there was a lady that used to live in Miami, and she actually was a dealer of costume jewelry during the 30s and 40s. And so she would take and come up and visit this particular antique shop, usually once a year. And she would sit and just go through all the costume jewelry. And the way that the obelisk was responding intelligently, as well as the different tools responding, the dowsing rods, everything responding yes and no, was the same type of personality as this lady. And some of the responses were real quick and quippy, sort of like her. And so she did tell me afterwards, she said that the lady had passed away 3 years ago. And so she thought that maybe it was not so much attached to that jewelry, but at that point, maybe it was an energy that was kind of attached to the owner, the store itself. It was an interesting investigation. And so then fast forward to this past Tuesday night, we traveled back down to the Northeast Georgia area. And so we did find out last minute that the owner didn't quite want to have the store revealed, but the store had a very interesting history. So I was really excited to go in there because this store itself was in an area, small town USA there in Northeast Georgia. It was originally a funeral home that they did. I'm not aware of any embalmings that took place there, but from right around the early 19 teens until the 1940s was where it was a funeral home. Then it turned into a five and dime store utilizing both floors. So, and then also while it was a funeral home, it did also have a section in the store that sold furniture. And then after that, it wasn't until like around 2006, 2007, that it actually turned into an antique store. So it did sit vacant for a little while after the five and dime store closed. So you've got all these the interesting past of this location. Something pretty incredible that happened in there was I had, so I was going to try some multiple experiments, but they had this toy room in there. So of course, I like the tripwire. I had it set up as well as the EDI Plus box. I like keeping that with me to notice any atmospheric changes while this is going on. We encountered a little girl that had a lot of the owner as well as one of the workers. They kind of gave us a listing of some of the things that have been experienced there in that store. So while we were in the toy store, we started asking about the little girl, and we ended up turning the obelisk on again, and the first thing it said was Halo. And so I was like, is your name Angel? Or just kind of asking these questions about this. Next thing you know, on the obelisk, it spells out the word angle. And so, depending on how you feel about all this, sometimes the theory behind the obelisk is that maybe they present words that may not be what they mean. They mean something different just because the word's not listed or what have you. So I went over, and the flashlight had been turning on as well. So I started looking by the flashlight that was turning on, and two shelves above that was a little glass angel. And so I picked up the angel and I said, is this yours? And on the tag and the tag and the price was written ANGLE. And I had to look at that because I was like, wait a minute, that's not how angel is spelled. This is misspelled. And I had the obelisk and I'm like, this is spelled this is spelled angle, and this has this written angle with the pricing on it. So, and the flashlight just starts lighting up immediately with that. And the tripwire, I had a static cam out in the hallway outside. And as soon as we found that, the tripwire starts going crazy. So, I don't know how to explain that. It was a pretty incredible experience. I'm sitting there live on air, shocked. And of course, the people who are watching was shocked as well. We had a couple other things we did. It said something about a baby and a bear. And right over from it, we did find a baby that was wearing a t-shirt that had a bear on it. So these intelligent responses. So we essentially did like a little scavenger hunt. We also, most of these investigations that we do live, they tend to be around 2 to 3 hours long. And so we tried some other experiments. We did go downstairs. We learned about an incident that did happen there in the funeral home. It was a suicide that did take place. And ironically, the anniversary of the suicide took place on October 6th. And of course, we're there on October 8th. We found the death certificate. It actually listed where the suicide happened as well as how it happened. And of course, we weren't really going to lead into that or asking those questions. I wanted to see if the spirit would tell me the name of the person and talk about the incident without me asking what the incident was or even talking about the incident. And so we didn't really get much directed to that, but we did end up putting a static camera with a spirit box down in the basement. And we did a little time in the basement. It was pretty quiet while we were down there. I also put a motion light down there as well as a grid just to have something for the spirits to interact with while we weren't down there actively investigating. I also wanted to see, so some of the theories that I have, I think what we bring into a location is a lot of what we get out of that location. I think that our energy affects that. And so I wanted to see if anything would happen when I was upstairs asking specific questions to see if that triggered anything downstairs as well. So we weren't getting anything. So I ended up turning the spirit box on and thinking, well, maybe you don't want to talk to me, but maybe you'll talk. And so I've not had the opportunity to go through all that footage yet, but the spirit box was spitting out some interesting responses, or it did trigger and spit out responses while we were actually upstairs investigating. So I'm really excited to go through that. And again, just these locations, they really present they've probably been some of the best episodes yet as far as intelligent, unique responses, because you do have so many possibilities of whether it's related to the building itself, our energy, or energy that could potentially be attached to any of the different items in there.
That sounds awesome. That's really cool. I like the fact that the ghost pointed out the spelling error. I
ended up buying that piece. And so I did. And not because I think it's a haunted item or anything of that nature, but just, I mean, I was literally blown away. And it happened toward the start of the investigation, because when I was literally standing there before I went searching and saw the word angle, and it's like, okay, well, maybe your name's Angel at this point, and or maybe that was a nickname that one of your family members called you. And so I was explaining on the live that sometimes you have to, sometimes the ovilus will spit out just random stuff. Other times, if you really take the time to look and use discernment and see if it's, see the relevance, you have to look at the relevance as well. And so when I started looking, I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to kind of see if I see an angel anywhere. And when I saw that, I literally had to kind of step back because I was like, maybe I'm spelling this wrong. And I asked the girl that was helping me film, and I was like, look at this. And so I have no explanation for that other than just, it was a very intelligent and very aware spirit that was really trying to tell a story. And it's things like that. We try to show it's not always creepy. It's not always about that creep factor, that jump factor. Sure, people like to be scared, especially here this time of year, but that's not what all of my investigations are about. A lot of the time it's about that spirit communication and doing some true research to see if we can experience something that just can't be explained.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about you actually own or co-own 2 locations down there that have some activity, and you guys do tours down there. Tell us about the locations, and can people come out and investigate? How can they find tickets? Tell us all about these places.
Absolutely. So it's really cool to been able to take this hobby that I have and be able to actually turn it into our job through historic preservation and restoration. So in 2021, I ended up forming the company History, Highways, and Haunts with a business partner. She's the founder of Soul Sisters Paranormal, Dr. Christy Sumner. And we both had that love of history and the travel aspect with paranormal. So there was a jail here in my hometown that had shut down in 2008. It was our local county jail. and they had gotten a tourism grant for it in 2017, but they weren't doing anything with the building. And so I ended up leaving corporate and wanted to move back to my hometown. And so I reached out to her to see if she'd be interested in going in with me to reach out to the town to see if we could open this as a true crime museum and a paranormal research center. And so the mayor and the alderman, they loved our business plan that we put together. And so we opened in September of 2021. So during the day, you can come in and learn about some of the true crime in Scott County, look at different artifacts as well as different items that we have on all 3 floors of the jail, because the history in there is absolutely incredible, of sheriffs who were killed in the line of duty there, lynch mobs that came in, moonshiners and ridge runners that served time there, sheriffs that got involved with Mexican drug cartel, or Colombian drug cartels. Lots of interesting history in itself from the historical standpoint. But in the evenings, you can actually come in and take a flashlight tour, which is it's historical and paranormal based. We take video, audio, and photo evidence that either we have captured or that teams from around the country have captured. And we tell you the history and show you those pieces of evidence while we're on the flashlight tour, and also do a little session in one of our active areas. Then if you're into the more immersive side of things, we do the guided ghost hunts. We'll take you through on a 3-hour guided ghost hunt, and we keep the numbers small. We limit them to 6 people or less. Those tend to be for more of the novice investigators, or people who just kind of want a little bit of a more immersive experience than a flashlight tour. And then we offer private paranormal investigations there. And so we're open every day but Tuesday and Wednesday. And investigation. Yeah. And then investigations typically Thursday through Sunday nights. You can come in and spend the night there, investigate. And so all of this, and we also have an escape room there where you can escape from our jail cell. So we try to have a little something for everybody. If you're not into the paranormal, we've got that history side, and if you are into the paranormal side, we try to have all the history and true crime there that you can take and be able to utilize that when you're doing your investigations. I think at this point we've had about 150 investigators that have come at this point, and won some awards for the museum, as well as some of the different tours that we offer. And so it was just kind of a natural progression. In May of 2023, we reached out to the Village of Historic Rugby. It's about 20 minutes from the jail itself. We're in a very rural area here of East Tennessee. And so a lot of the time we're kind of a pass-through area when people are going to some of these other areas. And so we wanted to sort of create more of a destination rather than just being a pass through. And so the Village of Historic Rugby is a old utopian village that was founded by Thomas Hughes in 1880. He was a British author, and he was essentially wanting to create a village to combat the class system that was going on in England at the time of the second and third sons. The first sons got everything. They got the allowance, the inheritance, and the job opportunities. The second and third sons really just got an allowance, and they had very few jobs that they could really choose from that was on their class level, I guess. And so he felt like that was a blot on the society. So he wanted to create a Christian socialist community where basically these second and third sons could come, and they could bring their family or come over and start a family, and they would essentially put into the community, and then they would work the land and they would get out of it whatever they put in. And so it was good in theory, but these folks that had never worked before coming to the Cumberland Plateau up here and expected to work the land, it was a little more challenging with our climate, as well as with just what you had to do with the land itself. They had they were hit with a series of highs and lows, basically. Several of those being the typhoid fever outbreak that happened there in the community, as well as, and that was not, and that was even it wasn't even a year after they had established they were hit with typhoid. The major source of income for the area, the Tabard Inn, it ended up burning twice during that time frame, and so that really hit the community hard. So it really lasted from about 1880 to right around 1900. At that time, a lot of the original colonists had already moved off. Rugby is a living village today, and there are about 16 of the original 48 structures that still stand today. And so there are people that live there in the community, and the homes that are inside of the community, they do have to be built in that Victorian design. And so it's really quite a treasure trove of history that's been very well preserved. I grew up, taking piano lessons and having Girl Scouts over there and hearing a lot of the ghost stories. And the ghost stories for that location, as well as the jail, didn't just start when we came in. In both locations, they started as when the original colonists were living there, or when the original people were working in the jail. So we've got a lot of our stories from people who lived in the area, from documented sources of when both of those places were active or in operation. And so with Rugby, we approached them to show them what we had done with the jail, and they really liked that. And so it took about 5 or 6 months of working out all the details, but we're in charge of all their after dark programming now. We run 2 different lantern tours out of the village, Thursday through Sunday nights. We also do guided ghost hunts there, as well as offer private paranormal investigations. And when people come to the village of Rugby, they're able to, and they do a private investigation. They get access to the library, the schoolhouse, the founder's house, the founder's mother's house, the Tabard Inn Burnside, as well as the old cemetery. So, so we try to, again, and the Village of Historic Rugby gets a portion of all the ticket sales and all the investigations and stuff. So all of this goes back into the preservation of both of these locations. And so a lot of work. Again, I never would have dreamed that I would be stepping out of corporate and this would be what I'm doing, but it's really cool to be able to take that hobby and that passion and essentially create a business out of it to help these areas or these locations sustain.
That's amazing. I know that's a lot of work. We do paranormal tours here, and just running that and stuff. We got them 3 days a week here in October, and all the other stuff I do. And yeah, that's a lot to imagine. Entire village and a jail. I can only imagine.
It is. And, and we were able to go to Rugby because they do some paranormal programming during the month of October. And so that was what we wanted to show them was, look, this is something that people travel all over the country for, looking for ghost walks and looking for places to investigate. And Rugby has such a cool history that's full of haunted activity, as well as just unique in and of itself for the area. And that, people will do this year round. And so, that's what we're seeing all over. And so it's been a really good partnership to take on. My business partner, she did a really big study. This is the second round of this study that she did between location owners and paranormal investigators and ghost walk operators. And she's been able to present it at several museum conferences here in Tennessee, the last one being the Tennessee Association of Museums, basically showing how after dark tourism is something that is an untapped resource that people will travel for. just to do that. And there's relatively low overhead for the after dark stuff that you have to do that can really help a lot of these struggling museums to not only be able to keep their doors open, but also have some extra funding and reach a unique audience that they may not reach just with their everyday average museum tours.
Absolutely. You don't even have to pay electricity to keep the lights on during it.
No, don't even, in some instances, don't even have to have plumbing. It's amazing what investigators will do. And it was really interesting to see the responses on this study that she did of the places. You know, we're in a unique spot anyways, here in the middle of the Bible Belt here in the Appalachian East Tennessee region, but just in Tennessee in general. When she was doing, because she really focused on this part of the study on the museums and whether they were utilizing after dark programs. And you don't even have to do the paranormal. Kind of has a people will look at you a little funny sometimes when you talk about the paranormal, but after dark programming doesn't even always have to be paranormal based. It can just be, small tours of a museum after hours. And so it was interesting to see who all was utilizing this and to see what their reasons were. And sometimes it's just a matter of staffing and finding someone with the interest to be able to do that. And that's where we came in with rugby, is they didn't have the staffing to do it. And they were very thankful that we were interested in coming in and just doing it. It was there. They just needed somebody.
Where can people find more information on that if they want to come out and check it out?
Yeah, so if you would like to find out more information on the historic Scott County Jail, you can check out our website. It's historicscottco.jail.com, or you can look up Historic Scott County Jail on Facebook as well as YouTube. We're very active there on Facebook. We do a podcast from there every Thursday night called the Jailhouse Informant, where we talk about everything that's going on there at the jail. That's where you will also purchase tickets for all of our After Dark tours, whether it be flashlight tours, guided ghost hunts, or private paranormal investigations. All of that's on the calendar. If you're interested in just a daytime history tour, you come in. We're open 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time every day but Tuesdays and Wednesdays. As far as the Village of Historic Rugby, we are a partner of theirs. So if you Google Historic Rugby Village, that will take you to their village. They do daytime tours. We do all the After Dark stuff. So if you search Historic Rugby After Dark on Facebook, that's where you'll find us. But if you go to the website historyhighwayshaunts.com, that will take you to our main page, and you pick whether you want to go to the jail or go to rugby, and it takes you to their individual websites that we have set up. And rugby's the same way. You just book it, book all of your After Dark stuff on our website. We've got it broke down by tours and investigations.
Very cool. I will get those updated into the show notes of this as well for you so that people can get that. I do have the Ghost Biker Exploration. I think it's the website, the Facebook, and the YouTube is all in there already. So we'll get the tours as well for anybody that wants to check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you go to my link tree there, my Ghost Biker Exploration link tree, I've got everything broken down from my show with Ghost Biker Explorations, and then our locations that we have. You can still catch some of this season. We're live at 3 great more locations. Again, this will be every Tuesday night during the month of October. If you just go to the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page, YouTube channel, or the website, as Barnaby pointed out, you can watch all of that live or catch up on some of the past episodes as well.
Very cool. Very cool. I got a chance to check out the I forget where it is, but there was a railroad derailment.
Yes, that was one of my favorite.
Really?
It was one of my favorite episodes because it was unique, and it was one that I just happened to find when I was riding my motorcycle out, scoping out for a haunted motorcycle ride. And it would have been the 1944 troop train accident, I guess, was the one you saw. Outside Investigation.
Yep.
Yeah. I really liked that one. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, doesn't look like we have any comments. We have a lot of people watching, but they must all be familiar with you or fans of you or something, and they're well up on the Miranda Ghost Biker stuff here. So there's nothing. That's a shock, honestly. But yeah, so if anybody does have any questions, throw them in there, say hi, say something before we sign off here. But it's awesome having you on. I think it's really cool. One of the things I find when we do our shows and investigations and stuff around the country, we'll go to a convention and we'll try and find something nearby to investigate while we're down there when we do this. And we got a chance to do the Portal 31 coal mine. And
Harlan, Kentucky.
Absolutely. Yep. And we got to go down there and I thought, okay, well, this is kind of cool and stuff. And then when I got home, as you know, editing, I say for every 15 minutes of video that you watch is probably 4 hours of editing just alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here I am going through this stuff. And the problem is there we go. See, hi. Susan says hi. There's people watching.
Hey, Susan.
They just have no questions.
I was rambling on. I probably didn't give an opportunity.
That's right. People I think get so enthralled in the conversation stuff. They just I don't care what you're talking about. We're gonna listen. I have no questions. But yeah, so I got so into the history of some of these things, and it just becomes so interesting to go into that. I've never been interested in Gettysburg either, growing up and stuff. And we ended up going there to film for an episode, and I honestly think it became one of my favorite episodes that we've done for Paranormal, because you go there and you see the location, you see the history, you do the investigation, and you can't help getting drawn into this whole thing. The whole town just has this totally different feel. And like I said, the Portal 31, all the coal mine history, and there's so much with Harlan County and all the songs written about it, and everything just took you down this whole wormhole of stuff, of just amazing to experience the history. So I appreciate that you're bringing out the small town history, because I can really appreciate that in the investigation of not just sitting in a dark room, is anyone here with me kind of stuff, and sharing that information with people. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. It is a challenge, because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if it's going to be active, and to me, it doesn't even matter. I like to pick those locations that have a interesting and unique enough story, and just being able to share that. The paranormal activity is just the cherry on top when it happens, because Harlan itself, my uncle was actually a coal miner there in Harlan, Kentucky, and just the history and the story. You could do a whole season just on everything there in Harlan, from the mines to the jail to just the things that happened in the street of the town itself. And these places, they're very depressed and distressed counties. And so by bringing awareness to these stories, and hopefully, and saying, hey, you've got the mountain, I think it's Black Mountain, I believe, that's there, or going to tour the museum that's there, or even Portal 31, by letting people know that this stuff is there and bringing people into the area. It essentially, by investigating, I guess, the dead, you're essentially bringing more life to the community itself by bringing awareness. And so I just think it's a win-win situation when you're able to do these lesser known places.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to go check out the museum there as well, the coal mining museum and stuff. And it was such a cool experience there. And the haunted schoolhouse, I can't think of the name of it in my head, but we stayed there. We did a little bit of investigating there as well, and it was a really cool experience. And the fact that like you said, learning the history and stuff of this, of going in there and learning about coal mining being company towns, and how this entire town was built off of that coal industry. And there was nothing there, and it happened out of necessity, because it had to grow. It's just really cool. the paranormal, it's, like I said, go sitting in a room hoping that something happens. But then when you go back and you start writing, the dialogue and stuff and the intros to these episodes and everything that's where it really gets me and draws me into all this stuff. And you can have a really, I don't want to say like crappy investigation, nothing happens,
Yeah.
whatever, and you still get to tell that story, and
Yes.
the episode just becomes the story, and who cares about what happened there, because it's just interesting. So
You nailed that. I mean, and that's why I say when you mentioned the 1944 troop train accident, that's why I really like that episode, because literally when I was riding my motorcycle down 25 West, scoping out the route, it was literally just a little small sign that said 1944 troop train derailment viewing area. And it's like, what is this? And it was so grown up. I mean, I had to go half a mile down the road just to find somewhere to pull off. And the rocks where the accident had taken place, the Boy Scout troop had put the monument there, but I don't know when it had washed away off the rock, but you could see the discoloration on the rock where the monument was. And so from my understanding, there was a hardware store there in Jellicoe, Kentucky, that actually had, or excuse me, Jellicoe, Tennessee, that actually had a little section in it that talked about this troop train accident. So when I get home and I'm doing all this research about this, it's like, this is a story that needs to be told. And I don't even know if I can investigate where this is, but I want to get down to the water and see. And so even though it was a simple and a little bit challenging investigation, because you do have the outside noise, the water, the road noise, and all this stuff, it gives the opportunity to investigate in a different way. I didn't know what I was getting into, so I didn't want to go in the dark and try to investigate it. But long story short, the evidence that we did get was really interesting on the spirit box, because really the only thing, we had an interesting rod session, but for the most part, the only thing I got was the word waterfall on the spirit box. And when I went back a week later to hike down to the monument where the river had been flooded, the monument is right in front of a waterfall. And so it was very simple. It was unexplainable to me of how that was, other than, potentially something leading in the direction. But to tell that story, and then at the very end, to be able to do a memorial to those soldiers who had passed in 44 by highlighting their names and having that scroll across the end, putting their story out there. That was what I really enjoyed the most about doing that, was sharing that story that needed to be told.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I knew this question, your one question in the comments section, was going to be my first question, because I knew somebody out there was going to ask it. So here you go. Our final question today: what kind of motorcycle do you have?
So currently I have an 883 Iron, which is a Harley Davidson Sportster, and it is a matte black, basically kind of a naked bike that's a throwback to a 1969 bobber. And so that's what I currently have. I'm looking to add an additional one to the stable, something that has a little bit bigger tank, a little bit bigger motor on it there for the longer travels. But I'm particularly fond of the Softail Slim or the Indian Dark Chief. But currently at this time, what I travel around on is my 883 Iron.
Very cool. I knew somebody was going to ask that. It was going to be my first question, and we kind of started rolling there, and I'm like, let's take it. But there you go. There you go. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and like I said, I really appreciate, bringing forward more of the history and stuff, these small areas, because I truly appreciate that. And I think that, from the paranormal aspect of this, I think a lot of the spirits that we do communicate with, the reason why they're in these locations is because they don't want to be forgotten, and they have this story that they still need to tell, and they want to be remembered. They want to get that story out. So I appreciate that there's more people out there that are more interested in that than making lights flash on a meter, and I think that's awesome.
That's what we always say too. I just have to add, with the fact being the small rural community that we're in, just the jail itself, our inmates, our sheriff that was killed in the line of duty, and the inmates who were lynched from the jail. These guys, they're from areas that don't even really exist today. They're town at the time, and now there might be a house there, but nothing else. And for people around the world to be sharing their story, or people around the country even to be talking about Jerome Boyett and Sheriff Richard Ellis, is really an amazing thing to me, because it does, even in death at this point, they live on their story, and people that you wouldn't think would have ever heard of any of these smokes in this poor little rural mountain town, they're telling their stories. And so that's what our goal is with what we're doing. So thank you for that. I do appreciate you acknowledging that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, and we're out of questions.
Well, and thank you to everyone that watched, and for your questions and stuff. And so for the people that took the time out of their day to watch, we appreciate that. And for those that are going to watch on the future episodes, thank you for doing that and supporting the content creators such as myself and Barnaby. A lot of work goes into that. So we appreciate you and your time.
We absolutely do. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again in person, and safe travels on all your stuff. And hopefully you've survived the last hurricane and stuff down there. Kind of came through that area. So hopefully you're well, and your family's well, and everything's okay down there. And
absolutely. Yep. We're good. And thank you for that. It was a little bit east of us. We got a lot of rain, had a little bit of a leak at the jail, but other than that, we're so blessed and so thankful, because Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, they had it really, really bad. So we thank everyone that's reached out to us, and for thoughts and prayers and everything. So we appreciate the acknowledgement.
Absolutely. Well, you stay safe. Be careful on your motorcycle. Wear your helmet.
Yes. Yes.
All that good stuff.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So,
all right. You take care. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share all things here on the Untold Radio Network, the Ghost Biker Exploration, and all things cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. You can find links, all of that stuff, in the show notes, and I will get in there all the haunted jail and haunted rugby town as well for you guys that are interested in some paranormal tourism. If you're in the area, go down, support them, support the town, support the history, and if you can, help them out. So that is our show for this week. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. We're all in this together. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you next week. You seem to know something I don't. What's going on?